Hey, this is the World Advice Channel. What I want to talk about right now is something that's been going on in France for the past month or so, at least with the dramatism that has been taking place. You know what I mean? The violent protests that have been going on in France for about a month. So for this video, I'm going to answer a question that I'm certain a lot of people are curious about, which is why are the French protests so violent? So I'm going to answer that question in a very straightforward way, okay? So I'm going to answer it right now. So why are the French pension reform protests so violent? The simple answer to the question is that people are tired of the system. Because the truth of the matter is, as I'm certain if you've read the comments for the video, for videos about this protest, you see how many people actually support it, to put it bluntly. While in the past, people would have, particularly in the early 2010s, because they had some pretty bad protests in the early 2010s as well. You would have, even then you would have heard a different story. Oh, I'm not happy about this. This should go peacefully. Violence is never the answer. But it's no one's saying that anymore, especially when it comes to this protest. And the reason why the protests are so violent is that people have had enough of the system, alongside the fact of why so many people support these protests. Is that people are just frustrated. People are just sick of it. Because the truth of the matter is, and this is kind of goes along with my personal perspective on this ideology, which I think in all honesty, are very presumptuous, and they like to generalize things and are actually straight up foolish in a lot of cases. The pacifists, but yeah, those type of people, pacifists, don't seem to understand. It's because they always want to make the same argument. Well, violence is never the answer. Violence doesn't do anything. An eye for an eye makes the world go blind. But whenever people tend to actually protest in a peaceful way, which you see happening throughout the whole world, whether it's in Europe, um, you know, um, places like Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Latin America, whatever, when it's actually peaceful, no one really pays attention, no one pays attention. No one gives a shit, to put it bluntly. No one even notices what's going on. But the moment things start getting violent, then people start noticing and stuff. Which definitely doesn't help that a lot of these regimes throughout the world do not treat their local people very well, particularly outside of Europe. They don't treat them very well, which pacifists don't seem to understand. This whole, oh, peace is always the answer and this and that. Because when you have peace, then no one pays attention. And a lot of times they just beat the shit out of you even worse, to put it bluntly, because you're not going to attack back, which is something they don't seem to understand, to put it bluntly. And even aside from those goofballs, the truth of the matter is that whole way of thinking in general, that peace is always the answer, just doesn't really work. It is not working anymore. The people of the world are fed up. We've had a lot of issues that have been going on for easily over a decade. From first it was the recession, then it became of course, later on, when the recession started to die off, it became issues of political division, left versus right. You had populists became popular. Then, of course, you had COVID-19 and all this type of stuff. There's been a lot of issues that have come up in recent times, and a lot of these issues, of course, well, have been fundamentally set up by the fact that the government hasn't really done anything. They don't really do anything to solve problems. They didn't really do that much to really help people that much on the recession. They didn't really do enough to kind of help, you know, resolve issues that led to the populist movement. They didn't do enough when COVID, um, you know, when COVID was sweeping the world, and they just didn't do a good job. They didn't give enough money to people. They just didn't do anything. Like Boris Johnson was like partying while people were on lockdown. So a lot of these things, of course, even though a lot of these things are happening outside of France, it still matters because it's adding to the collective perspective people have, because obviously the French people are going to go harder when a lot of people support them. So that goes along with it. So the truth of the matter is, in general, these these protests are bad because people are just in France and just in general the world combined are just had enough. Just nothing really gets resolved. It's a same old, same old, same old crap. No one's doing anything about it. We have all these issues that have been building up for a longest time, and the government just doesn't do anything. They don't really do anything. They just sit around, have these parties, these luxury parties and stuff, like on these yachts, and do all sorts of things, that I don't even think most of us can even comprehend because of how extravagant they are and stuff. While the everyday people are struggling, and they just don't do anything. They've just been pretty much useless, if anything, for that matter. And you see this all the time. Every time a politician gets elected throughout the world, they always say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do, we're going to do that, and nothing really changes. Same old, same old, same old. And of course, it's uncertain. Anyone who uses their brain would be aware everyone in the world has a breaking point, and people are just reaching their breaking point now, in all honesty. Heck, we might not even have a world in the next few decades. Look at how badly our society is falling apart because of issues such as global warming, the destruction of the environment and stuff, and just many different factors. The world is just had enough. People have had enough, in all honesty, and this is why things are getting so bad now, to put it bluntly. People have just had enough. People can't take this shit anymore. It's just gotten to a point where it's gotten crazy. So people, of course, when you realize, as anyone in their right mind knows history, just uses common sense for that matter, would clearly realize the truth of the matter is when people realize their voice is not being heard through peace, they're going to resort to violence to meet their ends. And in the end of the day, these politicians have no one else to blame but themselves, in all honesty. They just haven't done anything. They haven't really helped people with a lot of issues, and people have just clearly in a lot of cases lost hope. And resorting to violence is the only thing that they can do. So, well, what can I say, man? The truth of the matter is, anyone in any time in life you hear people say, peace is the ultimate answer and will always be the answer. Sometimes peace doesn't work. You have to really resort to violence to really get anything to happen, and in all honesty. And it just shows you just the state of the world as it is, to put it bluntly. Anyway, so this is pretty much what my belief system is, and I just think, to go alongside it, just to end this off, things are just going to get worse because a lot of these issues haven't been resolved. The price of living is getting higher, food, housing, and all these issues haven't have which I'm certain a lot of them could have been resolved a long time ago if people actually took the time to actually solve them. But nope, no one wants to solve them, so it just builds up and builds up until it just comes, and it just becomes one big thing at a time. So yeah, things are just going to get worse, and I just believe things are going to get worse, in all honesty. This is going to be, as my one of my other videos said, this is going to be one crazy ass decade, not a very happy decade, to put it bluntly. So anyway, this is my video, and this is my perspective on the French protests, the French pension reform protests. So if you like this video, and like videos like this, remember to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. And this is all I have to say, and simply put it, later.